Husband volunteered our tiny home for his family's crowded, 11-day holiday visit without asking me, sacrificing my peace and routine. We have a 1-bedroom apartment, my husband and I, and we're raising a 7-month-old in this tiny space. Every square inch counts, there's barely enough room for us, let alone guests. So imagine my reaction when my husband's sister and her family decided they wanted to fly across the country and stay with us for Christmas. For 11 days, they insisted, absolutely insisted, on staying with us instead of getting a hotel. And of course, my husband just agrees to all of this without so much as asking me first. When he finally brings it up, I try to make him understand how chaotic it's going to be with that many people crammed into our little place. Our baby is already struggling with sleep, so any extra noise will just make things worse, something only I seem concerned about. My husband's plan? He's going to be working for part of their visit, so he said his family will use my car to get out and do things, leaving me stranded at home with our son. The thing that really gets under my skin, though, is whenever I finally speak up and say how overwhelmed this makes me feel, he immediately acts like I just hate his family. Yet, he's never shy about running his mouth when it comes to my relatives. Here's the kicker, none of my family has even come over to see our baby yet, because they understand how much of a burden visiting would be. They know it's going to take hotel fees, rental cars, rearranged routines, so they don't impose. My mom even gets hotel discounts, but that still doesn't make a difference to my husband's side. Apparently, it's just not good enough for them. It feels genuinely rude to insist on sleeping on an air mattress that's going to swallow up half our living room floor. Where will my son play safely? I'm going to end up locking myself away just to pump every few hours, totally cut off from everyone just for basic privacy. My whole routine will be in shambles, with zero say from me. And then there's their kid, he's 5 years old, and I just have this feeling he'll be loud enough to wake the baby. Even my husband warned me, don't get mad if, sister's kid, breaks things. He's 5. But honestly, I'm going to be mad. Why does everyone just accept that as fine? Yet, somehow, I'm made out to be the bad guy here simply for having an opinion about my home, my baby, and my peace of mind. The more I turn it over in my head, the angrier I get. Am I really being unreasonable for not wanting my life upended for almost 2 weeks just to make everyone else happy? Update 1. Where do I even begin to untangle this mess? After my initial confrontation about his family staying with us, I decided to approach the topic again, armed with information I'd found about how to talk to a narcissist. I carefully laid out how having his family stay over would impact both me and our baby, not to mention how it would affect everyone else with me up in the middle of the night, and how my son needs space for his playpen. Baby-proofing a 1-bedroom apartment is so much harder than I expected. He listened, or at least pretended to, but he wouldn't budge. We'll keep analyzing it, he told me, dodging any real resolution. Thankfully, I realized I could cancel my hotel reservation up until the day before check-in, so I locked in a cheap 10-night stay nearby. That gave me a sense of security, a safety net in case everything blew up at home. Thanksgiving was a whole fresh disaster. My husband was driving us 3 hours to his family's gathering, and our son kept getting blinded by sunlight in the back seat. I'd tried all the usual sunshades, and just a few days before, I'd put up new magnetic curtains for the side windows. I grabbed them from my car and hung them in as while he drove. He complained the blinds blocked his blind spots, so I tied them back just enough to keep our son shaded but to let him see. Even so, he kept insisting they were a problem and told me to take them down. Then he turned and told me I need to ask before doing stuff. That was my breaking point. I lost my cool and brought up the whole family visit fiasco, how he never even talked to me before telling his sister they could stay. He exploded, shouting that he didn't need my permission because it was his house. Over and over, he told me to shut the FCK up and man up, yelled things like, if this was your family, and then, I don't want to be with a BTCHCNT wife. I stayed calm, I tried to, at least, and repeated that it's my home too. It's not about control, it's about respect. Respect for me, our routines, my son's comfort and safety. He just switched the blame, saying I didn't respect him and that I turned it around and made it about me, brushing everything off because holidays are stressful. He actually had the nerve to say, look at Home Alone, even in that huge house it's chaos. Except this isn't a movie, it's my life. Maybe, in another house with a guest room, I could man up and let them stay, even if it annoyed me. But not like this. So, just like that, I ruined Thanksgiving. My husband stayed late at work and only came home to sleep, not even seeing our son for nearly 3 days. In the end, I reached out first, texting him, come and have an adult conversation with me. You haven't seen your son in 3 days. His reply? But I'm working. Of course, I meant after work. He followed up with, no one wants me around anyway. I'm only good for food and money. I couldn't muster a response. Eventually, though, he came home and spent some actual time with his son. We did manage an adult conversation at last. The bottom line, his family is definitely staying. He refused to change what he'd already told them, insisted it would be too expensive for them to get a hotel, even at that discount I was talking about. He sneered at me when I said it would only be around $50 a night. I'd literally booked 10 nights at $518 total, but he just rolled his eyes. At least his sister showed some basic respect. She texted and politely asked if they could borrow my car for something while my husband was at work, offering to rent their own if I said no. Just because she asked nicely, I said yes, with the agreement that if I needed it, they'd bring it right back. My plan is simple. I won't change my routines for anyone. If his family can't handle it, they're welcome to get a hotel. I refuse to uproot my life for 11 days, for my son's sake if not my own. He comes first, always. He'll be okay, no matter how many guests invade our tiny space. Now, here's my dilemma: should I hold on to that hotel reservation? I want the backup in case my son and I need a quiet place to sleep. If everyone keeps waking him up, I'll have no choice but to leave for our own sanity. But I also hate the idea of wasting money if we don't use it. I just can't decide what's best. And for those who think I should get a divorce over this, I hear you. I'm at the end of my rope. This is his last chance to show me he can respect me enough to actually include me in these conversations. If he can't even do that, then I'm done. I'm so tired of him making decisions in the shadows, all without me. Update 2. As you might imagine, the past 11 days, an ongoing visit with my in-laws, have been nothing short of chaotic. The original plan was to stay at a hotel for the duration of their visit, but I changed my mind at the last minute for 2 reasons. First, as a stay-at-home mom with only $3,000 to my name, I couldn't justify the expense, and second, this is my apartment. I would have had to pack up our entire place just to stay at a hotel, which felt absurd. So I thought maybe, if I made things inconvenient for them, they'd leave sooner. That definitely did not work. By the second day, my sister-in-law and her family woke up feeling sick. I politely asked them to consider a hotel, given that my baby isn't vaccinated. Cue the major huffing and puffing, and their exasperated faces, all directed at me. My husband didn't back me up, and that was my first major red flag. From that moment on, all my energy was spent trying to keep their son away from my baby, rather than just enjoying the visit. But of course, they didn't get a hotel. My baby has basically been confined to his playpen because there was Korean food and Legos ground into my carpet. They'd planned a night at Great Wolf Lodge a year ago, something we discussed several times, with me explaining that I didn't want to stay the night since we lived just 30 minutes away. Why drag half the house with us? When the time came to go, my husband asked if I'd brought the pack and play because we had to drive separately. No, we already talked about this, I said. Of course, he couldn't remember. I refused to go back for it. We stayed a few hours, had dinner, then baby and I went home. I'd been sleeping in the living room with my husband so that our baby could get the sleep he needs. He's such a light sleeper, but once the visitors arrived, my husband insisted we move back to our bedroom. He wakes up around 5 a.m., and I've been trying desperately to rouse him before his alarm goes off and wakes the baby. I succeeded only once. Since Christmas, my baby's been waking up at 5 a.m. instead of his usual 6:30 or 7, totally undoing all the hard work I put into his sleep schedule. I can't help but blame the company and the alarm, which brings me to the second huge red flag: my husband's total disregard for my sleep, telling me, "You're a mother. It's your job." Sleeping and taking care of my baby is apparently all I'm supposed to want out of life. The stress of having guests has made every trivial annoyance feel monumental. Take my son's first Christmas, the one where we'd picked out the perfect stocking for him. Without asking, my in-laws swapped his for the 5-year-old's. We'd previously asked if the older child needed a regular-sized stocking, and they said, no, just get small ones for decoration. Needless to say, I was more upset than maybe I should have been, but by this point everything felt like a personal affront. Last night, we were at a pizza place, planning to share a few flavors. My sister-in-law's wife hates red sauce, so we all got pizzas without it, and everyone got what they wanted, except me. When I voiced my pizza choice, it got shot down with, "Hey, I don't want a lot of meat," even though my brother-in-law only ate 2 slices. Petty, maybe, but after being pushed aside at every turn, those things add up. Pumping in the bathroom alone was the last straw until I finally just used a breastfeeding cover in the kitchen. Still, every time I went into the bathroom, it was, "What are you doing?" when they full well knew I was pumping. I carried all my equipment with me, and always checked if anyone needed the bathroom first, but it seemed like 6 people sharing one bathroom was less chaotic than you'd think. But of course, this morning my husband was in there and the 5-year-old had to pee. Instead of waiting, they emptied a plastic bottle and let him pee in it, in my kitchen. I can't even believe this stuff happens. This morning, my baby woke up at 4:45. His sleep ruined from Christmas and the incessant alarm, just as I'd predicted. I hit my limit. I told my husband I was through. He tried to call me a CNT more than once and said he wished he'd never had a baby with someone as weak as me, telling me, "You never sleep when the baby sleeps," as if insomnia is a choice. I'd tried to make it until the in-laws left, but I couldn't hold on any longer. There's been absolutely no regard for my son or me. Oh, and just to top it off, my husband was sick the other night, refused to leave the bed, and now I'm sick too. I'm positive my baby was getting sick yesterday. His response? "I wish you wouldn't get so worked up over this. The worst anyone will get is a cold." The fact that he doesn't care if anyone gets sick, especially his own son, is inexcusable. Neither he nor his sister cared at all. I have never seen my baby so fussy and so tired as he was yesterday. The total disregard for my son was my final breaking point. I can now see, after so much reflection, that I've been brainwashed by a classic narcissist. I've wasted 7 years on this man. I hate the idea of springing this on someone at Christmas, no matter how badly I was treated, but I had to stand up for myself and, more importantly, for my son. Now it's just a matter of where we'll go next, but we'll figure it out. Update 3. I thought I could white-knuckle it to the end of their visit. Then at 5:12 a.m., my baby woke up hot and glassy-eyed, making that thin, breathy cry he saves for when he really doesn't feel good. I took his temp twice because I didn't want to believe it. 101. 8. The living room smelled like leftover takeout and cough drops and someone's cologne, and I was suddenly so aware of all the air in there not being the air he needed. I told my husband I was taking him to urgent care. He rolled over and mumbled, he's teething, like it was a magic spell that would make the fever disappear. I buckled our son into the car seat with shaking hands and drove in the dark, whispering through every green light, just hold on, just hold on. The waiting room was packed with kids in pajamas. My baby fell asleep against my chest, damp and heavy. When the doctor finally examined him, it was an ear infection and a lot of upper respiratory irritation. Her words. He needs quiet and rest. Keep him away from sick people if you can. I laughed, because what else do you do when the punchline is your living room? Back home, the 5-year-old was running laps, the TV was on some YouTube channel at a volume only dogs should hear, and my sister-in-law was hacking into a dish towel and saying, it's just allergies. My husband didn't look up from his phone. I told everyone, calmly, that the doctor said quiet and rest. I asked them to please go to a hotel for the last 2 nights. My brother-in-law actually shrugged. We've already spent so much on this trip. And then the 5-year-old tripped over the air mattress and took the tree with him, ornaments everywhere. One shattered was the little ceramic one my mom gave me when I told her I was pregnant, the one with the tiny gold ear on it. I just stood there, looking at it in pieces, and felt something harden in me. I went to our bedroom, shut the door, and started loading a laundry bag with the things that matter, documents folder, the baby's favorite sleep sack, my pump parts, a few onesies that still smell like our detergent. I texted my husband, I'm taking our son to a hotel. He needs sleep. We can talk later. A minute later his footsteps thumped down the hall. He did that thing where he takes up the doorway with his shoulders like he's the only hinge the door has. You're not going anywhere with my kid. My kid. My ears rang. I didn't argue. I said, move. He didn't. So I called the non-emergency number with the door closed and my voice so steady I surprised myself. I asked for a standby to retrieve belongings and leave with my child. The dispatcher said, stay on the line. While I waited, my sister-in-law tried to sweet-talk me through the door. We'll keep it down. It's fine. You're overreacting. And then the 5-year-old started crying for a snack and someone opened a new bag of chips and I could smell the salt and fake cheddar through the keyhole. 2 officers showed up 20 minutes later and everything went quiet fast, the way it does when you hear new voices in your house. My husband started with it's my house, again, and one of the officers cut him off with, sir, she's leaving voluntarily with the child. You are not to block her. I buckled my sleepy, feverish son in his car seat while everyone watched me like I was stealing the sun. My hands didn't even shake. We drove to the first hotel that had a room and took whatever they gave us, a suite with a too-bright kitchen and a bed that squeaked if you breathed near it. I pulled the blackout curtain in the room one airplane night. My baby slept 3 hours straight, then woke up to eat, then slept again. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to a silence so thick it felt like protective glass around us. I ordered the dumbest victory dinner I could think of, a small pizza with extra red sauce and every meat they offered. I ate it sitting on the floor with my back to the bed, watching my baby's chest rise and fall. My phone kept buzzing. My husband sent 23 messages in a row, apologies and then insults and then voice notes where he sounded like he was making speeches to a stadium that didn't exist. I didn't reply. His sister texted me 2 hours later, we didn't realize he was that sick. We got a hotel. I stared at that text for a long time, then put the phone face down. The next morning, she followed it with, we're flying out early. There it was, the thing I begged for 11 days ago because it was the decent thing to do, suddenly possible. By mid-afternoon, my baby had a dose of antibiotics in him and a humidifier puffing like a little cloud factory. His fever drifted down, his cheeks stopped being so hot. I took a shower with the bathroom light off and the fan on so the steam looked like fog, and for the first time in weeks I didn't feel hyper-aware of every sound my body made. It felt like being let out of a loud movie into a quiet lobby. We went back to the apartment the next day with 2 coworkers from my building's office as witnesses so I could pack up more of our things. Someone had propped the fallen tree back up with duct tape. The broken ornament pieces were stacked on a napkin on the TV stand. No note. My husband tried to hold a normal conversation about our router bill as I pulled clothes off hangers and zipped bags. I told him I would be communicating by text, and only about the baby. He said, you don't have to do this. I looked at the napkin with the shards of the gold ear and said, I already did. We're at my mom's tonight. She used her discount to get us a room with 2 beds and a crib that folds like origami and scrapes your knuckles if you aren't careful. My baby is sleeping between my pillows like a little king. My mom bought him a new ornament with this year on it, not to replace the other one, but to be the next one. I stuck it in the pocket of the diaper bag so it doesn't break. I don't know what our apartment will look like when I go back. I don't know what my marriage will look like when the paperwork is done. What I do know is what a healthy baby's breathing sounds like in a quiet room, and tonight I'm going to lay here and match my breathing to his until morning. Update 4. The courthouse smells like dry paper and winter coats that never quite dry. I strapped my baby to me in the carrier and he breathed bubblegum amoxicillin into my shirt while I filled in boxes that shouldn't exist. Describe incident. Prior incidents. Weapons in household. The clerk slid me a pen on a chain and asked, almost casually, if I wanted temporary custody and exclusive use of the residence. I said yes in a voice I barely recognized, like a match that finally caught. The judge read my affidavit, eyes moving like a metronome, and then his stamp came down, one heavy thud that felt like a door clicking into place. Good cause found. Temporary protective order granted. A stack of copies warm from the machine, the ink still shining. A sheriff called 2 hours later to say he'd been served at work. I wasn't there to see it, but I imagine the moment anyway, the briefcase of his mouth opening and closing, that first flutter of anger with nowhere to land. I turned my phone face down and called our building office. They'd had complaints logged, excessive noise, visitors, late hours, and the manager's voice softened when I explained. We can change your locks if you bring us the order, she said. It took 4 minutes, old lock out, new cylinder in, a tidy plug of metal shaving swept into a dustpan. The sound of the new key turning was a clean little piano note. On my windshield, a folded piece of notebook paper. Hope your baby is okay, a neighbor in 3C wrote in slow blue ink, with a peppermint taped to the corner. I slid the peppermint into my coat pocket and kept the note. The car wouldn't start. The dashboard flickered and died like it was embarrassed to be seen. I popped the hood and stared at the maze of it, red cable slack, a lug nut shiny where someone's fingers had been. The AAA guy looked once and said, someone loosened this. He tightened it, neat efficient clicks. You're good now. I took pictures. Time-stamped, hood up, my own reflection in the chrome like a tired ghost. I filed a supplemental with the case number from the order, my voice flat and patient with the dispatcher. A box you don't think you'll ever need to check until you do, interference with transportation. The pediatrician squeezed us in for a follow-up. No fever. The ear an angry pink giving up its fight. She wrote a note, no communal gatherings, needs consistent rest, on letterhead that looks more official than the way my arms have been pleading with the air for 2 weeks. I propped the note on the hotel dresser where the little coffee machine sat like a toy. My baby saw his reflection in the stainless steel, grabbed for it, and laughed, a real one, sudden and round, and the force of that tiny happiness knocked me back on my heels. I didn't realize I'd been breathing like I was under a heavy blanket until then. He sent flowers. Of course he did. Daisies, because he thinks daisies are harmless. They arrived at the hotel desk with a card that said, let's talk, which is not what you're allowed to do when the order says no contact. The desk clerk asked, do you want them? I shook my head. The bouquet looked like a prop someone forgot to use. I called the non-emergency line and a woman wrote down the violation in that crisp way that sounds like folding a shirt you don't want to wear anymore. Document and don't respond, she said. Copy, paste those words onto my forehead. The text came anyway, bouncing off the legal wall like birds off a window. Apology, insult, apology, a picture of our baby from July that he had no right to use like bait. I didn't answer. I downloaded the co-parenting app a lawyer at the legal clinic showed me that morning, the one that timestamps messages and doesn't let you edit them into something prettier later. Communicate here, I typed, exactly once, and then I deleted his number so my fingers couldn't betray me. There were more practicalities than I expected for leaving a life. The passport I'd already taken, the social security card zipped into the documents folder, the birth certificate I kept touching like a talisman. I called the pediatrician's office and put a password on my baby's chart. I called the bank and opened an account with my own name and the peppermint still in my coat pocket. I called our internet provider and listened to hold music that sounded like a polite robot trying to hum. I went back to the apartment with the building manager as witness to pack for real this time. The tree was still duct taped into a kind of stubborn cheerfulness. Someone had added a strip of electrical tape for good measure, like that would make it festive. On the TV stand, the old ornament pieces had migrated from paper napkin to a saucer. No note. I picked up the smallest shard, the corner with a comma of gold paint, and put it in the coin pocket of my jeans. The manager saw me hesitate at the door and said, we'll mail you anything we find. I said, it's all right. I'm taking the air with me. She laughed and then looked like she wished she hadn't, but I meant it. The air inside that place will take a while to forget, and I'm not going to teach my son to breathe it. New Year's Eve snuck up like a cat. At my mom's, the hotel kids flipped paper crowns back and forth down the hall and somebody set off fireworks in the parking lot. The blasts came muffled through insulated walls, just little soft punches against the quiet. My baby didn't wake. I bought a tiny jar of dollar store glitter, shook some onto a paper plate, and used a glue stick to anchor the shard from the broken ornament in the middle. The cheap glitter clung to my fingers for hours, until even the sink water had a shine to it. I wrote the year next to it with a gold pen and propped it on the windowsill, not a replacement, not a fix, just proof that something fractured can still catch light if you put it in the right direction. This afternoon, I found a sublet. A one-bedroom with a window that faces a brick wall and, I swear, the quietest refrigerator in the city. The couch looks like it made some hard choices in its life, but when I stood in the room and clapped once, the sound didn't bounce. It absorbed. The landlord slid the lease across a Formica table and didn't ask any questions I couldn't answer. Month to month. Keys Thursday. I texted the co-parenting app the pediatrician's hours, the follow-up appointment date, our son's current dose in milliliters. No adjectives. No apologies. The app timestamped the message and spit back a read receipt like a small steel coin. I didn't expect the most satisfying thing this week to be a hardware store key on a ring that isn't ours. But when I held that new key, dull brass and a little greasy from the machine, I felt something in me exhale that's been held in since the first time a door was blocked and a voice said mine where it wasn't. Tonight, my baby slept with his hands flat above his head like he was making snow angels in the dark. I lay next to him and listened to his breathing, the kind that doesn't ask permission from anyone. A siren went by somewhere far off and then the building settled, the old heat knocking once in the pipes. I didn't think about what the apartment looks like now, or whether my husband counts our plates like a tally of who's winning. I thought about the peppermints in my pocket, and the judge's stamp, and the glitter that won't wash off. I thought about how, in 2 days, keys will turn and a door will open into air that knows our names. Update 5. The key turned like it knew my name. The sublet smells like new paint and old toast and the kind of clean that's really just absence. My mom and I moved everything in 2 trips, laundry baskets instead of boxes, a dresser without drawers, the crib someone on Marketplace gave us if we were willing to carry it down 3 flights. The refrigerator hums like a polite animal. When I clapped once, the sound didn't come back to me. The quiet didn't feel empty, it felt occupied by something good. I hung the glitter plate on a ribbon on a cabinet knob because a bare room needs an anchor, even if it's made out of dollar store. The radiator knocked once like a polite cough. My baby pressed both hands flat against the wall and laughed at nothing, and I laughed, too, because maybe nothing is exactly what he needed. Wick had a fish tank with one bored orange fish doing slow laps around a fake castle. They weighed my baby and measured the little curve of him, and when the nurse said he looks good, Mama, it slid under my ribs like a warm hand I didn't know I'd been missing. We left with vouchers and a stack of papers, and on the sidewalk he fell asleep with his cheek on my chest and the air tasted like someone doing laundry on our block. On the way back from the pharmacy, my phone buzzed a sentence I didn't know I had signed up to hear. An unknown air tag is moving with you. I stopped the stroller so fast the wheel squeaked. My pulse shot right up into my throat, and for a second all I could hear was the soft, tiny ocean of my baby's breathing. I dug through the diaper bag until my fingers hit something smooth and coin small wrapped in painter's tape and tucked under the changing pad. It chirped when I pulled the tape off, a bright, thoughtless sound. It felt obscene in my palm, like finding a key in your own pocket you didn't put there. The precinct was colder than the outside. The officer had an iPhone, too, and he made it chirp again and bagged it with a number that will mean something to someone official later. He said words like warrant request to Apple in violation of order, and I took pictures of everything and emailed them to myself and then again to the co-parenting app because paper is paper but timestamps are church bells. Walking back out into the street, I could finally taste the air again. The exchange center has waiting room chairs bolted to the floor like they're afraid of running away. I filled out forms with my child's name and my name and his name, and all the names felt like labels on jars in a pantry I don't live in anymore. They took us into a room with a window that is one way, which is a kindness you can see right through. The toys are all the ones that make satisfying little clacks and clicks. A staff member leaned in and said, "No phones. If you need anything, knock twice." Her tone said she has heard everything anyone has ever tried to say. He came in looking like a man cosplaying composure. He sat on the floor and held out stacking cups like an offering. My baby gave him the solemn look he saves for strangers and legal documents, took the top cup the way he takes spoons from me, and seriously, methodically, handed it back. 8 times. He tried for a selfie and the staffer moved toward the glass so fast his hand froze in the air. He set a gift bag on the rug. The staffer checked it for cameras and needles and bad ideas and then put it back. He looked at me through the glass once, the kind of look that hasn't learned yet that glass is a fact, and my stomach did nothing. 50 minutes later, my baby reached both arms for me, soft and sure, and tucked his face under my chin like a bird. I signed my name and a staffer stamped a time and someone closed a gray door in a way that felt kinder than most doors are. It's a strange thing, watching him try to perform father where love used to be a verb. We got home and the closets made their small hollow sigh when I opened them. The radiator hissed its snake song. The knock came after nap, the soft official kind, knuckles that have met a lot of doors. CPS. A woman with gentle hair and a canvas tote with papers and laminated empathy. We received an anonymous report, she said in a voice that doesn't like to scare people. I nodded and opened everything. The fridge with milk and spinach and 3 tiny yogurts like poker chips, the sink with clean bottles drying on a towel, the humidifier puffing its ghost into the corner, the prescription with the label facing the light. She ran a finger along the crib slats and glanced at the screws like she could read the torque with her eyes. My baby waved at her and showed her a spoon. She smiled and ticked a box and left a card with her name and the kind of direct number people usually guard. "We'll likely close this out," she said, and the words were neat and thin like floss. I slid the card under the magnet on the microwave and for a long time just stood in the kitchen and listened to the refrigerator, steady and not trying to be anything else. He sent a message in the app that said, "I'd like to see my son outside that hostile environment." I sent back, "The next available appointment at the center is Saturday at 10. Confirming you will attend." He wrote, "You're alienating me." The app stamped at 3:12 p.m. and I closed my eyes and pictured the judge's stamp and the way it didn't care what any of us felt, just the facts, ink on paper, door clicking in place. The tire shop guy called me boss and stuck his head under my hood before I could even finish the sentence. "Battery's fine. That cable's been tightened recently. You're good." I nodded like that was the weather. Later, when I lifted the stroller out of the trunk, I checked the seams like the edges of a map. Nothing hummed. Wind moved down the alley like a coat swinging on a hook. At bedtime, the radiator made that deep hollow knock that sounds like somebody knocking on the pipe on purpose, like an old building checking in. My baby slept with one hand flopped over his head, fingers relaxed, palm wide open, a little starfish signaling safe harbor. I ate an apple over the sink because new kitchens always feel like hotel rooms for a few days. The glitter plate caught the light from a passing car and threw it around the room in little coins. I took the peppermint out of my coat pocket and propped it against the baseboard like a talisman for ants. I put the AirTag report in the same folder with the AAA pictures, the pediatrician letter, the court order, the neighbor's note, the paper life of the last 2 weeks that says we are here and we are real and someone wrote it down. I turned off my phone and put it face down and the room didn't get louder without it. Somewhere 2 streets over, somebody set off a firecracker way too early for anything. It bloomed and disappeared. My baby didn't flinch. The quiet held. I lay there listening to the refrigerator hum and the radiator breathe and the old pipes talk to themselves, and the sound of my son's good sleep braided through it all like a thread. When the heat knocked once more, it felt like the building knocking back to say, "Yes, you're in the right place."